Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host Jim.
Robots and spaceships. I can't decide. I got a bag here, like in case I start to hyperventilate. Good.
There's a reason for that, folks. Also joining us is your co-host Hunter.
What is going on, everybody? I am so super excited for tonight. Like, you guys don't understand the level of intensity of the two legends that we have with us on the show tonight. I might need to find myself a paper bag. Jim, you got any extras? Because I'm all out.
Yeah, guys. We have. I'm gonna be honest. Our guests. We have some legends with us today, and I'm not using that word lightly. Joining us from, I hope I said this right, Breda in the Netherlands.
Breda, yeah.
Breda. David Wessman, lead designer
at Skyrim.
Lead designer at Impeller. It's Impeller Studios, right? That's what the name.
Yes.
Okay, at Impeller Studios. If you guys don't know David, he worked on a little thing called X-Wing, TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. You know, just a couple little ditties. Also joining us from Savannah, Georgia. How are things in Savannah, by the way?
We survived the Category 3 Ion Storm.
Thank goodness.
So your shields were down for the weekend.
There are no such things as shields. So.
Oh, here we go. Joining us from Savannah, Georgia, project director at Impeller Studios, Jack. Oh God, I didn't ask you how to say your last name. Is it Mamais?
Mamais.
I'm sorry.
Mamais.
Guys, you really don't understand, because Jack worked on Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries and Heavy Gear 2, which are probably my two favorite mech games of all time. And you know, David worked on is it the entire X-Wing series, if I'm recalling correctly? Yeah, all four of the X-Wing games. So we love you, David, and we hate you. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, not Jedi Starfighter, right? Just the X-Wing.
Just the X-Wing.
You know, Jedi Starfighter actually isn't that bad.
Brian and Jim over here are not as big a fan of X-Wing Alliance like I am. I actually appreciated X-Wing Alliance. Just throwing that out there.
No, I like X-Wing Alliance just fine, especially with the texture upgrade stuff and the new models.
Yeah,
and
I like X-Wing Alliance after you get away from the family. That's great.
Yeah.
Great job, Ace.
It had a lot of nice feature upgrades that actually impacted gameplay. The story was a bit of a struggle.
The engine was long in the tooth too.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was. It was during X-Wing versus TIE Fighter that Peter Lincroft, the engine programmer, remarked out loud one day, "Oh my God, this bit of code is from Battlehawks 1942."
No fucking way. Sorry, I'm trying to curse less, but really, Battlehawks? Oh
yeah.
My God.
Probably had some scum engine in it or something, right?
No. No, that was purely Lucas. Larry did his own engine.
So Dave is actually he's responsible. He's like an enabler for the whole Star Citizen project, right? Because if you hadn't have made Battlehawks, then Roberts wouldn't have been able to turn it into Wing Commander.
That is true.
And, you know, so yeah.
So yeah, you also worked on Battlehawks and Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. Am I remembering that correctly?
I was a tester on Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, which is how I finally met Larry, and went out of my way to make a good impression and convince him to hire me. Because when I realized that the flight combat games were being made by somebody who was not a Lucas employee, I want to work for him. So I made that my mission in life.
Now, friends, I want to tell you, we are going to talk about Starfighter Inc., if that's what you're here for. I promise you we are going to get to it. But seriously, we've been wanting to talk to these guys about our childhood for a while now. So please indulge us while we just get this out of the way, if you don't mind.
Quite literally, my gaming experience growing up started. Like, I didn't really have a computer myself growing up until I was probably about 16 or 17. But I started my computer space sim experience with X-Wing Alliance. And from there, that opened up the door to go, oh, there were more before this. And I played all of the X-Wing games. And then I also stumbled upon a little game called Earth Siege 2, which opened up the door for me to realize that there are other games like Mechwarrior that were, better as games. And so quite literally, this is like literally my childhood.
Yeah,
so
kind of
Jesus
true.
Christ.
Even me, my first game, I bought my computer for X-Wing, my first PC. And I think that had to be like around 1992, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
When did X-Wing come out?
Early '93, actually.
So it had to be like 6 months after that. It made me buy my first computer. So Dave's my hero too, guys. So just so you know.
Yeah, so I mean, your games literally took a bunch of us through very formative years of our youth and college days and whatnot. So we do need to geek out about that a little bit. And so I appreciate your indulgence.
Please do.
Well, so I'm sure you'd love to hear about what we didn't do that I wanted to do during TIE Fighter.
Oh, do tell.
Peter and I were looking at the map mode, and we'd been playing a lot of RTS games in the office, and we looked at each other and said, we could put an RTS mode into TIE Fighter. And we both like, yes, and rush off to Larry. I said, Larry, can we put an RTS mode in? And he's like, no, we don't have time for that. I was like, so I when I did the design for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, the idea was that there would be some sort of strategic layer that would play like an RTS, and then you'd resolve tactical battles with the flight sim. And that was also ruled out. And the reason for that was that we didn't have enough time was because we had spent the first 5 months of that development phase working on a Millennium Falcon game.
That was awesome.
What?
Yeah. The third game was going to be a Millennium Falcon game. It was going to have actual run and gun inside ships and platforms. And about 5 months into it, we'd created a storyline that had one character that was modeled on Han Solo, so you'd be basically a smuggler, and the other was modeled on Boba Fett, so you'd be a bounty hunter, and their paths would intertwine, and it would feature those types of ships. But we realized that our team was too small, and we did not have enough time to do that project justice, and the fan expectations would be through the roof, and we knew we'd fall short. So we just, the smart thing here is let's do something we know we can do well. And that thus was born X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and the focus on multiplayer was in direct response to the overwhelming desire of fans who kept asking for multiplayer. So, we'll give you multiplayer.
Now I have to be.
So in the.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask real quick. In the engine, is it still available for an RTS capabilities, or?
No. I tried again with X-Wing Alliance, and because I knew that was possibly our last hurrah, and LucasArts had imposed a tight deadline that we had to have the game ready to be shipped before the episode 1 movie came out, which gave us like an April deadline. And if we missed that, they would sit on it until September, because LucasArts marketing was convinced that Star Wars fans would get confused if there was new Star Wars product at the same time there was classical Star Wars product, and how would they know? So,
well,
come on.
But seriously. And so I thought, well, let's miss the early date. Let's give ourselves time for additional polish, and then maybe we can get my RTS mode in. And Larry's was, no, we cannot afford to do that. We need to ship this title on time.
I do have an RTS mode in Heavy Gear too. I do have an RTS mode.
You can imagine how thrilled I was when Homeworld came out and won all kinds of awards and critical acclaim.
Oh no.
Oh man. You know, I'm gonna get Disney on the phone and tell them Westman has an idea for you.
I don't know. I would love to do another Star Wars game for many obvious reasons, but
Please.
Starfighter is way more compelling to me, to be honest. It's just it's the
opportunity it's just like
something that nobody's ever done before.
You are like the Timothy Zahn of Star Wars games. You know that, right?
Thank you. I take that as high praise indeed, because part of my job was to be the in-house subject matter expert, and I had to read every goddamn Star Wars novel, comic book, RPG supplement. And
I've got some fanfic I might want you to look over.
Oh no, thank you. I've had enough.
I gotta say, the story, especially in TIE Fighter, was just, I mean, you took a thing that was hated, the Empire. You took a thing that was hated. And not only did you make them sympathetic, you made players like cheer for them as the game went on. Like, yeah, Empire. Like, wait, what am I doing?
Well, I mean, Larry's games, the World War II games, they all featured both sides of the war. And when we were developing TIE Fighter, we looked at it from that point of view of like, okay, well, if you were raised in Imperial Japan or Nazi Germany as a young man and you're a patriotic young person and you want to fight the good fight, all the propaganda is telling you that you're going to be a hero if you help us out with this. So that was sort of the guiding philosophy, is look at it from that perspective. And it's funny, I was just reviewing some article on TIE Fighter and the story, and the observation that you don't actually spend a lot of time fighting the rebels. And that was deliberate. It was like, this is a galactic empire, and at this point in time, the rebels, they're annoying, but they're not like the dominant problem in the galaxy. There's all kinds of problems in the galaxy.
Yeah, because the majority of their thing would be just like local police and like the CPAN Civil War, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and keeping an eye on your own officers to make sure they're not going renegade, which is a typical problem with authoritarian governments.
Yeah. Well,
and that was kind of what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you got to do this before the prequels came out, because otherwise, like, your dialogue for Vader would have involved like whining about sand and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I wrote dialogue for Vader that was even darker, and they told me to tone it down. I was like, but I thought he was the ultimate personification of evil. Why would you want me to tone it down?
Kids play this game, Dave. Kids.
Oh, well.
But I have to be honest about something. When X-Wing versus TIE Fighter first came out, I wrote it off because I was expecting more TIE Fighter. I only realized later how ahead of its time it was, not only in its netcode and how it handled multiplayer, but how it handled everything, really. It had all these features that many games today still don't even have. Like the co-op campaigns and all that. It's amazing.
It was frustrating when the first game came out and the reviews were mixed. It was like, oh, the gameplay is awesome. This is the best multiplayer experience ever. But where's our goddamn story? And we'd get slammed for that. And that was my fault, because I vastly underestimated the importance of story to Star Wars fans. And I had convinced the team that we didn't need to put a story in. We're giving them multiplayer. What happens when you play multiplayer with your friends? You have excited conversations afterwards. You tell your own story. So here's your very own Star Wars storytelling kit. That wasn't. It wasn't seen that way.
You were too ahead of your time, because people weren't ready for it.
Really?
But we knew we'd be doing an expansion. So okay, we heard you loud and clear. Here's your story-driven campaign. Here's the best cutscenes we've ever done. And oh, by the way, it supports 8-player co-op. So how's that?
Which is amazing. And we've played with at least 5 or 6 people in co-op in that campaign, and it is a blast.
Yeah.
Except for that one mission.
Except for that one. But what I'm saying is, even like what I love about that is you guys even had a UI that was just so seamless. Even with multiple people, if you used a command that you would use on the AI, the other players would see it. Like, attack this target and stuff. Right. Just wonderful stuff that was, I have to say again, just fantastically ahead of its time.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's actually one of the areas that we're hoping to innovate with Starfighter and take all of that design knowledge and push it further.
So did you guys, speaking of Starfighter, did you guys get the music band to play a role in this game?
What music band?
Oh, come on, guys. The Last Starfighter.
Yeah, we don't even give a hoot about The Last Starfighter, to tell you the truth. It doesn't exist to us, really.
Hey, wait a minute.
See, I had the build up there.
We love that.
Great aspirations of defending the Starfleet.
If you would have said Robert Preston, I would have known who you were talking about. But you said the Music Man, so I wasn't sure who you were talking about.
Centauri.
Billy Joel song?
It's Centauri. Centauri, come on. Welcome to Rylos, my boy.
I thought the Death Blossom was a stupid idea, so I wasn't a fan of that.
That movie does not hold up to logic. But when you're a 13-year-old boy and you see that in the theater, it blows your damn mind. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna cross that right off my Starfighter Incorporated want list. Then Death Blossom is out.
Yeah,
Mechwarrior dropped.
But we'll have a different version of that. The bomb pumped lasers are always a fun tool. And if you followed the Strategic Defense Initiative research during the 80s, we decided that we're going to make some of those things work.
We had a guy on here, about 3 episodes ago that worked on SDI. So
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we could, and he wrote the software for Venus Probe.
He was the one who made Starfleet.
Yeah, the DOS Starfleet game.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all ANSI graphics and
that was a great. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name, but he was a great Sorensen.
Yeah,
Trevor Sorensen. Trevor Sorensen.
Yeah, he knows where the monolith. He knows where the monolith is out on Europa.
Was that based on Starfleet battles?
No, it was sort of a bridge thing, but not really.
That's really a great paper pencil starship game in Starfleet battles. It's really, really good.
I have it right over there on my shelf.
Times Ken's going to show up.
Yeah, every time I make a game with space, I always consult that. Absolutely.
No, the Starfleet games, to refresh, is remember those ASCII Star Trek games that were on mainframes in the 70s? It was a refinement of that. The first game was a refinement of that formula. But the second game had planetary invasions and all kinds of crap. It was super ambitious. So that was a lot of fun. But I want to switch gears for just a second, if y'all don't mind, and talk about some stompy with Jack here, because, sir, I tried to say this in the early part of the stream, but like Heavy Gear 2, I said favorite mech game, but that game got me into the pen and paper universe, which is just amazing.
The Heavy Gear pen and paper universe?
Yeah. I still have a bunch of books. I've
got all their books. I've got so many mech books. It's
not all of them, because remember you gave me about 15 of your Heavy Gear books.
I still have. I had copies of all those, dude. I had copies of all those. So they used to give me all the books that would come from all the companies. So
see, I was really fascinated with Gear Krieg. I thought that was awesome.
Another good one. Yeah,
that was later.
The alternate World War II.
DreamPod 9. The interesting story about DreamPod 9 is like I told you guys earlier, it was a license that was kind of chosen. I wasn't consulted, even though I was like the guy running the mech games. I was a consultant for the Next Universe, and they chose here, and I was really surprised when I saw that license because I was like, you guys know the allure of our game is giant Godzilla-style robots, and this is about small, rounded, squad-based military tactics. And I did some research on it, and I was like, guys, you realize this is Votoms. So I think they had actually taken a lot of inspiration from an anime called Votoms. So
I would say more than inspiration. It was almost like tracing
I'm being
paper.
nice. I'm being nice.
Wait, what's
I'm
it
being
called?
nice.
What's
So when
that
I went up and met with them, because like after I finished Mercenaries was a big success for Activision, and Heavy Gear 1 was not a great success. They had like a C rating, and the sales were low. But I had a hard time telling them. I think it's more the license. I think we should have looked at. I told them we should look at Evangelion or Gundam. Those were the giant robots I was interested in right during that time. And it turns out that they came back to me and they said, okay, hey, what do we have to do to get you to Heavy Gear 2? So I, worked at Activision, and I'm a company man, and I made Heavy Gear 2. But when I did it, I went back to the drawing board and I looked at everything about it. And I said, the first thing we have to do is get off Terra Nova, because Terra Nova is basically a very boring planet where there was a north versus south situation going on there. And I said, why don't we just blow up their most important city at the beginning of the game?
I was so mad about that.
Bomb, and let's get the two guys together and let's go attack some of the other planets. And I wanted to make it where Caprice was just the first planet, and they could go to. They have other planets out there in the universe. It's actually a cool universe when you dig below the surface. It's a cool universe where mankind is. Go ahead.
So to research this, did you go buy the Votoms box set and just indulge that? Because I noticed that you had 0G like in space combat, and Votoms kind of did some of that too, and it almost looks.
Yeah, but the majority of the Votom stuff was ground based, so I took it to space, and we only had like 3 0G missions right at the end, so that was like. That actually was because I wanted to give a variety of encounter, which is a game design term.
Well, yeah, nobody's done that before.
Right. So nobody. I knew if we took it into space, then we would be having environments like in Heavy Gear 2, you had magnetic boots on, and you could lock to things. So you could go lock to like an asteroid and run around it and go upside down and use an asteroid for cover, right? And it was all 0G. It was all real physics. So at that time, I was even experimenting with hard science fiction and hard physics in space, because we still had to keep it loyal to the universe. So we had to still do that. But I wanted mechs in space. And it turns out Caprice, they had mechs called frames, and frames were built more for space stuff. And Caprice was more a spacefaring planet because it only had like one habitable area. So they had a lot of stuff in space. So we really embraced that part of the universe and went for it, which I thought was much different from Votoms. And, it worked out critically on Heavy Gear 2, but at that time, that came out in 99. Yeah. At that point, the space sims and all sims were dead. They were all dying, and everybody was moving to console games. So the only thing was like Colony Wars was doing pretty good on PS1. Generally, all space sims, like Falcon 4.0 didn't sell. Nothing sold. It all died. PC almost died, actually.
Free Space 2. Yeah. Free Space 2, one of the finest space sims ever. Free Space 2. 30,000 copies.
After.
But yeah, 30,000 copies. 30,000. That failure.
Yeah, that failed.
I thought that game was really a brilliant compromise between the X-Wing series and the Wing Commander series.
It totally was. Yeah.
I didn't like the mouse control. They took a lot of the sim stuff out of it. I like Privateer. That was probably next to X-Wing. X-Wing is obviously my favorite space sim of all time. Privateer is my second favorite space sim of all time.
That's a good choice. That's a solid choice.
A huge influence on Mech 2 Mercenaries. So we definitely looked at Privateer when we were playing it. We was like, how would Privateer be? And we took more of the mercenary angle and a less linear approach than they did. But, they had some great stuff.
Have you seen the mod for Freelancer that converts it into Star Wars? Because it's shockingly good. They're not done with it. It's still very early alpha stuff. But I played the Discovery Freelancer mod like on the regular a couple times a week, and I'm still playing Freelancer because it's the only thing that's like that. It's the only space MMO I can give a shit about, actually. And they got a server. I think it's in Germany. There's like 80 people on it, 24/7, and it's fun. Because I can be a truck driver in space and get shot at by pirates, and that's really all I want to do. So.
I used to play a lot of mod games, but it became so hard to keep up with them and make it going, and the audience was so small. And I have really limited time these days. I'm a full-time college professor, and I'm making Starfighter Inc. basically in my spare time. So I can only play. I really have to choose carefully the games I play. Like right now, I think the only thing I'm playing is Clash Royale on my mobile phone, which is unbelievably great. Talk about a great RTS. If you guys hadn't checked that out, it's unbelievable. And I play a lot of World of Warships. I've loved that. And for me, it's a major inspiration for our game is World of Tanks, World of Warships. And I play a lot of League of Legends, which is also a lot of inspiration for our game. We've taken a lot of their, the way they have micro tuning to the characters, and we're really exploring that in our ships in our game. So the
World of Warships angle, right? Because you're a fan of that, Hunter and I love it. We haven't played it in a while, but it's when we do, it's great. But the thing about that game, have you played Fractured Space any? Because that's kind of World of Warships in space.
Yeah,
but I'm wondering with your game, can I jump into the ship?
Well, this is why I say we were Counter-Strike meets World of Warship, because we've always been from a first-person perspective, and that's part of the realistic aspect of it. That if anything you see through your helmet, you can see drone cameras and stuff like that, but you're a piece of meat inside of a tin can, and that's the danger, right? If you get killed, if your pilot gets killed, you're dead. And we're going to let them eject, and we're going to let them try to keep themselves alive however they can. But I think when you're playing it from a first-person perspective rather than looking at it from an outside perspective, like World of Warships and World of Tanks, which I love those games, but they're lacking in immersion for me, right? I always feel like I'm a general sort of ordering stuff from afar rather than I'm part of the action. So that's why we always, and when VR started coming down the pipe, even though we started designing this game 3 years ago, everything that we had designed worked perfectly in VR because we were already a first-person perspective. So you were a pilot sitting inside a ship. So that's where we're sort of different from those two. That's why I like to say it's Counter-Strike meets World of Warships. That was one of our original elevator pitches for this.
Right. So you guys started working on the game 3 years ago. What brought it all together?
Like 4 years ago.
Oh,
4.5 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's been a while.
This is a huge design process.
So basically, you saw the Star Citizen Kickstarter, and you're like, "Hey, no, I'm kidding."
We were working on this before Star Citizen.
I know, I'm kidding, but it was around 2012 when things started to really come back.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because Star Citizen's success proved that there was in getting lots of money. That showed that there was definitely the demand, and just the competitive product analysis phase showed that there was about 24 space combat games in various stages of development.
Well, this idea came before we had heard of Star Citizen, for sure.
Right. Well, yeah, the guys that started Impeller Studios, it was basically because they wanted to recreate those great cockpit shooters from the 90s. And so they started building a studio around that idea. Jack came on board and brought all of his experience and expertise, and just a chance encounter with me at GDC. And we're doing a space combat game. And I'm like, really? Well, I've worked on a few. And they're like, oh my God.
My greatest blessing and greatest curse joined the team on that day, which was,
yes.
I told Dave, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this hard science, which means 3 degrees of freedom, right? Just the top level things that you think about with hard science fiction, which is, your ship keeps moving and the really basic Newtonian stuff. And Dave's like, actually, I have another idea. So we're going to do real hard science. That means if it's not on the drawing table, then we shouldn't do it. And we had huge arguments. So I was like, okay, here's the part where I want to say raise your shields. And he's like, fuck you on the shields, dude. There's no shields. There's no stealth. There's no faster than light. By the way, capital ships, the deck orientation is all wrong. So everything you guys have done is wrong. So that stuff hit me like a ton of bricks, right? And we had to like start getting, we have a physicist, Zach, who works with us from a really amazingly super smart guy. And he does a tech design on everything we do to start us off to say, okay, the weight of the ship and the propellant and here's where you store ammo. And it creates so many gameplay possibilities that the constraint itself makes us totally unique from any other space game that anybody's thinking about. Right. Because everybody else.
That's the guy I got the 3-day long lesson on rocket math from, right, in the forum.
Yeah, watch out for Zach, man. Watch out for Zach.
Well, he got me reading Atomic Rockets, and now I know what's going on.
Atomic Rockets is Dave's thing. Dave's one who brought
that is my Bible.
Yeah, Dave said we have to use this as our Bible. And I started looking at it, my eyes glazed over because, really, truly, Dave is lead designer. He's kind of the mechanics of everything, and I'm his director. Needs to make sure it's fun. Right. So both of us have to be able to look through everything. I'm also a graphics whore, so I demand graphics be unbelievable. Yeah. So
well, see, my heart was broke though, because I was like, I just want I want silent service in space. Can somebody make that? And then they point me to Atomic Rockets and it's like, no stealth in space.
But there's misdirection and there's decoys and if you have a ship coming towards you, you don't necessarily know what's inside that ship. So it could be a huge decoy where, 10 fighters come out of a ship, like a swarm comes out of it, and you had no idea, right? By that time, it's too late.
Style, huh?
It creates huge amounts of strategy like you've never seen. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, that was one of my issues was some of the mission scenario ideas had things like, and then suddenly out of nowhere, these pirates appear kind of thing. It's like, no, everybody sees where everybody is.
I designed that mission and they got shot down.
It's like there are literally thousands and thousands of sensors scattered all through the solar system and everything's tracked. So where the surprise comes in, and this is a extrapolation of current developments with 3D printing. The military is now 3D printing spare parts. There's some companies proposing to 3D print drones on demand. And, well, if you can do drones and spare parts and munitions, then the fact that you know that I'm coming and I have a ship of a certain size and a certain drive capability, but you have no idea what I'm carrying and what I might be shooting at you. So so when players get into a mission, one of the first things they do is read the contract, find out what the mission objectives are, what they're up against, and then based on their personal preferences and play style, they'll decide what their armament actually looks like. And so when you actually enter the battle, there'll be a lot of surprises.
Right, but you'll already be committed with a certain ship. And you'll be like, oh, wow. It's like League of Legends. If you go in with League of Legends with somebody that's all anti-magic and a physical guy hits you, you're dead instantly, right? And ours will be similar to that where you can do rage, you can do some kind of armor that may help against a certain type of damage. If you came in with lasers, that's obviously going to do thermal damage. And if a ship has a lot of radiators, they can bleed off that damage. So how do you configure your ship? What sort of things are you going to do on your ship in multi-role function? Like this guy's job is to pick up pilots that are stranded, right? And make them gunners. And this guy's job is to carry fuel around if we need that. So we're really exploring by constraining ourselves so hard with hard science. We've had to create a whole host of new gameplay mechanics to make it more fun.
I really like the multi-role thing you just mentioned. It reminds me of another multiplayer space game from back in the day called Allegiance, if you guys recall that one.
That was
still
right
running
around 2000.
Yeah, it was by Microsoft.
It's still running.
Microsoft published it, right? Yeah. I for some reason it escaped my notice when it first came out.
You're not
alone. I only
there.
read about it later, and I'm reading the whole list of features, and I go, oh my god, this game sounds awesome.
It's like if you're familiar with natural selection, for the people out there that maybe have played natural selection, right? So you have one person on the team that's the commander, and he's playing an RTS, and everybody else that's playing on the team is actually his units. So he controls what facilities get built, what upgrades happen, and what equipment you get. And then the individual players just grab a ship and go do. But he can put orders, waypoints out on the map, like attack here or defend there and stuff. So
we're gonna have some limited aspects like that where you'll be a squadron leader and you can work with you can work with people in your squad to give them orders. And we've actually got ways that they can actually sort of hook up together and just have one guy flying, where they can fly in formation and other pilots can do other things while they're doing that. So we're coming up with some crazy stuff, that's for sure.
So what are some of the different scenarios you can play around in? Is it territory capture? Is it capture the flag? Is it like is it a MOBA style match? Because I've been looking around trying to get a real good idea, and I'm just curious what kind of matches we can play against each other.
Well, most of the encounters will be really fast. And one thing we're looking at is a distortion of time. That you're accelerated when you're in combat. So your perception of the speeds is essentially what normal humans would perceive as normal speeds. But the situation, every scenario has to make sense. So where it takes place, what is being fought over and by who has a backstory. So it's all logical. And the whole standard list of typical military types of missions, whether you're doing some sort of raid, you're doing force recon, you're escorting something, protecting something, all of these basic ideas can be explored in a million different ways based on the setting and who's involved. And working with the orbital dynamics of how, if you've got ships in orbit around Saturn and you've got a force coming from outside of that system, it's likely that it's going to be sort of a hit and run type of thing. So there'll be a limited amount of maneuvering. You're not going to get the typical furballs in a lot of these missions. Some of the missions you will, but some of them will be more like, two ships passing really quick. And do you remember an old PlayStation game? What was it called? Bushido Sword. It's a sword
Bushido
fighting.
Blade.
Bushido Blade. Yeah. Blade. So a fight could last for a while, or it could be over in seconds based on one player's tactics.
That's our Counter-Strike angle too. So that's like Counter-Strike.
Well, how do you solve the thing where it's like I'm coming toward you, right? Like it's an asymmetric thing. Like you're defending, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm coming to kill the ship that you're escorting, and I'm not going to be approaching slow, right? So it's almost like I'm going to be in a retro burn trying to slow down so that I don't just whiz right past the target at like Mach 10.
That's the idea. You can't have maneuverability if you're going more than a certain speed. So in order to fight and do things and accomplish objectives, you've got to slow down and have people protect you. So yes, you can fly on past fast you want to, but to what avail, right? You're not going to be able to do it.
Well, I guess like at the beginning of the mission, when the opening setup is your ship already decelerated, so you're at a relative speed.
Those are mission designer choices to make. So the different forces might be in relative alignment in terms of speed and direction. And those are the missions where you'll see a lot more sort of traditional dogfighting maneuvering. But other times it'll be like a head-on pass at very high speed, and so it'll be that perfect knife thrust, and in coordinating with the other guys. Like some of your force might have decided to do a massive deceleration burn that's going to bring them into the close proximity of the target and basically match speed, while others in your force aren't going to do that at all. They're going to go through as fast as possible, minimizing the chance of taking any damage, and they're going to soften up the target for the other guys.
Okay, so they just are kind of like almost like a sniper shot that just whizzes past and you hit what you can and you're gone.
If they want to, they may decide to do that, and that the other team may decide to just have heavy ships that's waiting for them to shred them if they try that, right? So it's all going to be about what you choose to go in with. It's going to, and it can vary drastically depending on what you go in with.
So fuel is a big thing, right?
Oh yeah,
fuel.
Okay. So as I'm flying, I'm going to be watching my fuel gauge, and it's basically when I get to bingo fuel, it's time to go because I'm not going to be able to get home otherwise, right? So, well, in the approach phase to the target and the deceleration and stuff, I could see where you bolt a bunch of fuel tanks onto the ship, and that lets you get there. But when it's time to fight, you jettison all that mass.
We also have ships that can launch you like a railgun, so they can go ahead and put you up to speed without you spending any propellant. The ship will just launch you and send you on your way, and then you're burning this down.
Like all that G would be a pancake, right?
We have a G-force indicator. If you go faster than it, if you don't have the right equipment, you die.
Yeah. Well, and humans can actually withstand pretty high G loads as long as it's for a very short time.
Right. So you'll be watching that, and we have the pilot himself has an air pressure reader. He's got a blood pressure indicator. He has a Geiger counter. All those things. He can die. He can die from heat. He can die from all those things if he's not careful. He's got a spacesuit on, but the spacesuit doesn't make him invulnerable. It just gives him a little time and space. It doesn't really do, and tells him what's killing him.
Okay, so the railgun shot, maybe that'll be like in Battlestar Galactica when they fire them out the tubes.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we've been using a lot of We've been most of our battles and our testing has been with railguns and lasers. That has been where we're doing most of the heavy lifting.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I guess. Now my brain locked up.
It's so the sort of rock paper scissors thing there. The railguns turn out to be kind of the best all around weapon. Missiles can be devastatingly effective, but they have to get through the anti-missile barrier. And having a close-in weapon system that's a laser, it doesn't actually have to destroy the missile. It just has to destroy the seeker head.
Yeah. So why don't I just build a ship that's a giant railgun and I just launch asteroids at who I want dead? And
you could do that, which would be a very effective way to target large facilities, and
that's actually one of our mission scenarios too.
Things that are relatively stationary. But and one of the things that we wanted to do in how we pace this game and how it builds, we don't want it to be this like grandiose World War II, World War III right out of the gate. That's something we want to build up to. The setting it's corporate warfare, more extreme than you see today on the Earth as we know it, but not so dissimilar to what was going on in the 1600s and the 1700s. So there's all kinds of violence that can be limited, and basically the agreement between all of these powers is to not escalate things to that level. And that it keeps things, I think, reasonable. If we really wanted to get carried away, we could have just insanely destructive weapons, and it just wouldn't be fun. I mean,
yeah, but we do have Dyla nukes, and that is pretty insanely destructive.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is actually one of my favorite parts of the game is Dyla yield nukes, and because the blast effects aren't really that significant unless it actually hits the ship. It's the radiation effects, and you could have a 1 megaton blast like 500 meters away from your ship and survive it, as long as you've got the right radiation shielding. And we're, of course, extrapolating advances in how we treat radiation sickness and a little bit of genetic engineering in there as well.
Yeah, so
right.
Well, with the pilots and that, okay, so have you, I know it's like you've seen the show The Expanse, right?
Yes. That
okay.
is best.
So
when that came out, we were like, wow, they made a show about our game.
Yeah, because that's what I'm kind of feeling. And then you had posted before, Dave, that you had played a little bit of that Children of a Dead Earth, and of course they're taking a completely different tack with it because their ships look like like chrome cigars, right?
Yeah,
and it's your tube with guns on it kind of thing. It's a little more like orbital World of Warships kind of deal, but it's all very plotted out. And you guys, it's like you skip the plotting of the orbits and stuff, and you just handle that last 10 seconds.
Well, there's a reason why we're doing that, and it's deep into our story, and we probably don't want to go into full details of why our technology is the way it is. But suffice it to say, in our world, corporations control everything, and these battles are basically an opiate of the masses for the future. So that's kind of why we exist. That's where our mercenaries exist in that space.
Okay.
Yeah, think really violent reality TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the campaign that you guys are talking about, right? Because it's like you're aware of Titanfall, right? So they did a single player multiplayer campaign thing where it was just like you hop in. And it's like, well, whatever mission of the rotation we're in, we're going to play through these 10 missions in order. So you might join in the middle of mission 5 and it rolls through the rotation. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, if it's a drop in, drop out multiplayer thing, and then you've got, opposing teams and stuff. First off, are you going to have PvE just where some friends could get together and then we're just going to fight AI and go through the campaign instead of dealing with other players? Because that seems to be very popular in a particular game called Armored Warfare. More people play the PvE. It's World of Tanks, right? But then they put a PvE mode, and more people play the PvE than against other humans.
Well, primarily we're multiplayer because we're a really small team, and there's no way we have the $50 million it would take to make a single player. Here's all this advanced AI. Here's all these new assets happening all the time. That was never part of our plan. Maybe in the future it could be part of our plan, but
because they're more complicated than driving a tank, right? An AI driving a tank.
Yeah, it's unbelievably complicated. Now, what we learned on the last Kickstarter is yes, there is an audience, and they kind of got mad at us because we said here's our game. It's sort of like by the guy who we actually said it's like World of Tanks meets Counter-Strike. But it's done by the X-Wing and Crisis guy, and X-Wing and Crisis both had strong campaigns. So they expected us to say, here's this amazing space campaign that's going to be like, Star Citizen. That was never our intention. But because we always intended to make a single-player tutorial because our ships are hard to fly, and it takes you a while to get used to them. As soon as you get used to them, they're amazing, and they're maneuverable and everything like that. But there's a learning curve. So we knew there had to be a fun, amazing tutorial that everybody could get into. And what we came up with during the Kickstarter is we're going to work to provide additional single player content, and we're going to do that in the form of single player reward missions that you'll unlock. That once you've played a certain amount of multiplayer missions and things have happened in our universe, and our universe is going to have a back meta story that's happening behind the scenes where Corporation A is fighting Corporation B. And after a certain amount of victories on A side or B side, the universe will change. So in a way, our universe is controlled by the players, But what we've added is there's going to be a single player reward mission that they can go into with their friends and their squad. And for instance, like if there's a bunch of multiplayer missions, then there'll be a single player mission that'll wrap up, that'll be playable once. It'll wrap it up and it'll set the next multiplayer thing. So in a way they get a little bit.
Is the multiplayer campaign going to be like, okay, so let's say it's red versus blue, right? Yeah. And we're on blue team. So there's a bunch of battles going on that's red versus blue. And does that mean like the battle line actually moves on the map based on the activity of a bunch of sessions? Or is it just like 5 of us join the blue team and we're going to be in a mission that gets chosen?
No.
And okay.
There's overall structure that's happening to the game.
So there's a grand campaign map.
We've got a 5-year narrative that we know. Go ahead, Dave. You want to?
Yeah, well, because at first, because we're describing something that is aspirational goals at this point, and we have Russell DeMaria and Zach both are working to flesh out our story and our world and create some storylines that we could explore as the setting for a campaign. But initially, it's going to be a bunch of missions that we can build campaigns out of. And so, and part of this is for us to learn what works and to get the game out to as many people as possible, as early as possible, so that we can refine these systems and steer the further development into the more ambitious ideas that we have. But yeah, like Jack was saying, if we had $50 million and we could hire a huge team, we'd be tackling that stuff a lot sooner. But because we're a small part-time team with no money, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to figure out the deal of like where you said where it's going to be like a slow ramp up, into the hotter conflict.
That's going to happen. That's going to happen overall, even if it's only multiplayer. We've got there's side A, side B. It's if you've ever heard of the game Pirates of the Burning Sea, where you would play for you'd be Dutch or English or Spanish. And they would eventually one side would take it over, and then they'd reset what they were doing. It's similar to that concept, where because we wanted to make sure. One thing I don't like about World of Warships and World of Tanks and Counter-Strike is you're never really going for a long-term goal. You're only doing medium goals, which is finish, kill somebody and finish the match. But you're never like, okay, when we win this, something happens. So we wanted to address that by making the players themselves are going to actually decide where the story is going to go. We're going to have multiple paths, but depending on side A, side B, or side C, or side D, then a new path, like Dave said, will open up. And oh wow, this corporation just became ultra powerful because they secured the mining rights, in this little sector of Saturn's rings. So now they're going to be the ones to beat, and everybody's going to start throwing people against them. So the next sort of missions are going to be go against these guys who are
so if we have a squadron, right, and so do we get a mission list like here's the 10 things you could choose to do right now based on what the red team's doing? Which one do you want to jump into?
You'll have a little bit of information about the missions coming up. Hopefully there'll be a variety of multiplayer missions that'll be running, and you can choose, if everything goes right. This is all caveat on us getting different amounts of funding from different people. But you could keep your squad together. And we kind of have it when you log into the game, you log into a hangar, and we're going to let people log in to their hangars and float around and talk to each other and choose and think about stuff before they go into a mission and choose, let's take this together.
Okay, because a big problem that a lot of these games, like we'll just say like Mechwarrior, right? With Mechwarrior Online, they decided, okay, we're going to do our community warfare thing, which was long promised and kind of under-delivered. And so they said, okay, well, we're going to do this thing where we got these different planets, and we're going to say, like, this planet is under attack, right? So then people can go queue up for that. And that would be fine, except that they also have I forget what that algorithm is, right, where they match like basically like player skill ranking and stuff, and they try to put you against people that are ranked about the same skill as you, and because of that, then you might sit there for like a half hour waiting to get
right. That's an ELO score, and the way we're dealing with that is we're going to make it so if you want to take a bigger risk, if you're not because everything we're going to attach a threat value to pilot skill, the ship and everything. So when you're taking a contract, it's taking into account, okay, we can take a 500 threat level up to a 500 threat level ship here, but we're going to let it, since it's mercenaries, we're going to say, oh, you want to go in with a weaker ship or a stronger ship, you'll get paid less or you'll be paid more. So we're gonna make money balance out a lot of that stuff.
Well, because in a real war, I don't get to call the Russians and say, okay, well, we're gonna send our rookies, so you guys send some rookies too, right? So it's kind of like you deal with who's there.
No, but there is behind the scenes stuff going on in every war, right? There's deals, there's backroom deals being made and stuff, and there you know how much people are going to go, because generally Hitler knew what our gross national product was, right? He knew what England's gross national product was. So he could make decisions on the things he was making and what he was sending based on, I don't think they'll be able to counter with that, right? Or I need to have a treaty with Stalin because otherwise we're going to get overrun. So, right. You have an idea because there's resources you're working with. And
right. Most wars end in bankruptcy, not destruction.
And that'll be our same thing. Everything's going to be about money and damage, and you're going to have like
intellectual property rights.
Right. And the corporations themselves, they're going to establish where you're going to fight. And if you decide you're going to leave that area, they're going to make sure that your ship blows up or something bad happens to you if you're not towing the line, right? Because the corporations are just using, in our universe, corporations have all the power, and they're using mercenaries to do little knife strikes just so they can get ahead of the game. And they're like, okay, we're going to take that. We've negotiated down to the point. We have to have that. We're going to send mercenaries in, right? We're going to pay people to do that. And you see that. I read they said the SpaceX thing probably got sabotaged by mercenaries, didn't I? With the SpaceX ship that blew up, they said, was that sabotage? So yeah, there was some speculation, right? That's us, but it's in space with ships.
I love a good conspiracy theory. I'll have to check up on that.
So we are talking about.
And one of the things I wanted to do is have when say Lockheed Martin gets sued because they got cheating on a government contract, and so Boeing manages to get a judgment against them that prohibits them from doing any government contracts in a certain area for a few years, maybe forces them to give up a facility, and they say no, take it. So
right.
Those kind of scenarios.
And they might say take it, you sue us for it, and they're like, we're not going to sue you for it, we're just going to come in and we'll deal with the consequences later, right? So, because we're going to take that.
I'm just so glad that you guys don't have like the space Russians versus the space Chinese and the, where it's
in our universe identity, but in our universe they create governments if they want to control somebody. They would establish. They say, oh, maybe a democracy will work better, on Europa, but definitely Mars needs a communist Marxist regime. So they would set it up based on what they need. And we think it'll go as far as religion too. The corporations will use religion to control people and make them do what they want them to do. So in our world, it's absolutely the most cynical fucking world that's ever existed, right? It's corporations they've got everything that they've been scheming for in every movie you've ever seen. They're always scheming to do it. And we're that plus 50 years, right? So that's kind of the backstory.
Well, in the current political climate, I can see this outcome. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I was actually
in one of our darker moments, we were thinking it might be funny if you have a mordant sense of humor, that as a mercenary pilot, you sign up and you're under contract, and all of your equipment and all of everything you need to survive and live is provided to you by the company. So you live in the company town, you shop at the company store, you use the equipment they give you, you go out on a mission and you don't do so well, your ship gets pretty messed up. You come back and they're like, well, that's just going to be tacked on to your bill. So you'll be working for us for another couple of years.
Absolutely.
I love that idea. Become
Well,
like a slave
that's the
to
thing.
the company.
Like, if you had a mercenary group, like if you start, let's say we have like a clan, a guild, whatever, and we play together, would we actually like share? Here's the pay bucket. This is the money that we have, and this is what we buy equipment and ships and.
Well, when you sign a contract in our game, you're making a predetermination of, is this how much percentage of salvage am I going to get? Because we're going to have a huge concept of salvage. How much did your consumables cost? Because that's going to be a massive cost. Your repair, will that be amortized among the clan? All that stuff will be you're accepting contracts, and maybe some people want to take more risks than other people. So we're going to let that float.
Yeah. Are you guys?
I think you can get a lot of. We've got a lot of inspiration from history, and Age of Sail gave us a lot of the basic economics for this sort of thing. For how is the money divided among pirates or mercenaries? Everybody gets a share. Some people get an additional share. A few people get an additional share. But yeah, and again, why your reputation is important. If you prove yourself to be competent in combat, that you get your objectives done, you get it done efficiently, then your stature rises and you're going to have more power. You're certainly going to be offered more lucrative contracts.
And discounts on if that corporation sells that share.
Loyalty rewards, right? If you keep working for the same corporation, there's going to be benefits to that. If you don't want to be tied down, you be a complete freelancer. It'll just be a little bit harder to advance maybe, or certainly be harder to get certain pieces of equipment, because they're like, well, our records show that you were involved in a mission where you attacked one of our facilities last year, so we don't really want to sell you our latest radar system. Go somewhere else. And then your option as well, I could always try to capture one of your ships and just steal the technology.
Absolutely.
I love the sound. I love the sound of this persistence going on, because that's one thing I was going to ask about. Because one reason I don't like to play MOBAs and stuff like that is because like you play a map. Oh, okay. What was that about? What was the larger?
Well, that's one thing bothered me about World of Tanks, World of Warships. I love them, but when you walk away from it, it doesn't pull you back, right? And
exactly.
We're going to use narrative. We're going to use narrative as a mechanic to pull people in and hold them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that there's reasons to come back and work for your clan or your company or whatever. I like that. So
or betray them.
So we have some questions from the audience, if you don't mind. First, Angelus Death asks, so are there more ships or just one ship with multiple variants?
There's going to be we've got about 20 or 30, I think it's almost 30 ship designs on paper, and we've so far built 7 of them, I think. Well, 3 that we've actually got flyable, but we've got the Dromedary is an automated tanker. We've got a couple. It's not actually a ship; it's a structure. We've got a processing facility, transshipment hub / space elevator counterweight. But yeah, the idea is that there's all these competing corporations, and just like the contemporary world, there's a lot of different people that you can buy fighter aircraft from. There's a lot of different people you could buy armored vehicles from. There's a lot of different people that will supply you the weapons or the sensors that go in those weapon platforms. And what we want to make even cooler, though, is have a more modular approach to things. So you have a basic space frame, but kind of the philosophy between the U.S. literal combat ship, where like entire sections can be replaced. So you want to focus on anti-air, you want to focus on anti-submarine warfare, you want to focus on supporting special forces ashore. Here's the mission pack that you put into the hull for that.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
So
I mean, it makes sense.
Short answer is right now we have 3 ships. We built our smallest ship, which was the Shrike, and you guys have all seen that in the. That's a ship we've shown the most of. The Shrike is a one person ship. It's mostly like a Wild Weasel from Vietnam, but you can have different configurations, like Dave said. But it's small, so it can hold like one weapon, maybe one weapon and one missile or something. So it can't really hold a lot. And then we built our biggest ship, which was called the Hyperion. And it's funny, somebody asked me if I'd read Dan Simmons, but when we named him, but we had named him before that. I read Dan Simmons since then, and we're keeping the names because it's awesome. But the Hyperion is our biggest fighter, and it's a 2-seater, a pilot and a Wizzo. And we also built a support craft called a Pegasus, which is multiple roles. It can be like an assault transport. It can be a refueler. It can be a gunship, kind of like a C-130 in space. So we've built, every extreme of the ships. Our goal is to build lots and lots and lots of ships and continue to add designs. But all of our ships will have multiple configurations, and players will be able to put different weapons and different configurations on them as well. So there'll be a lot of options.
I wanted to ask you guys about some other of the multiplayer features. I was thinking about PlanetSide 2. I don't know if you guys have played Yield PlanetSide 2.
I was friends with the guy who was the director of that, Dave Jordanson. So he worked with me on Heavy Gear 2 as a producer. And then he worked on PlanetSide 2 after that.
Oh.
When you guys are game developers, you tend to know a lot of other game developers, huh?
It's a small world. It's a small world.
But I was going to ask you, though, specifically, there's an interesting mechanic with the way PlanetSide 2 works, where it's a big area of territory control and very long, drawn-out matches. Is there going to be anything similar to that? Are you guys looking at, or
nothing like that? Nothing like that. Like I said, ours is closer to a world of tanks match, where you're going to go in with 10 versus 10, 15 versus 15. You're going to have a 10 to 20 minute battle. At the end of the battle, you're going to get, your rewards or the bad news that you did poorly, and then you're going to be ready for the next battle. So there's not going to be an ongoing capture territory. There may be some mission gameplay modes that have you capturing things and stuff like that, but it's going to be nothing like PlanetSide 2.
Gotcha.
Okay, we have another... sorry.
Well, one thing that hasn't been said, I don't think, is it all happens within the solar system, because there is no faster than light.
In fact, our first season is going to be all around Saturn, so we're going in deep to every part of Saturn. Ooh. And we're going to stay there for everything that we do for the first part of it with our story, and then we're going to start branching out later. But yeah, there's no faster than light, guys. So the only way to do it is stick a popsicle and shoot them out to that Proxima Centauri, and eventually they'll get there. But that's not our game.
Okay, another question from the chat: will there be NPCs?
No.
Well,
there may be enemy NPCs. You'll have some drones that may have some limited AI, but there's going to be nothing like we haven't planned on wingmen, anything like that. That's just not in our. We'd love to do it, but that's just not in our current plans. It may come down the road.
It'll sneak up on us, because the sophisticated missile behavior and drone behavior that we want to have isn't that far away from having an actual NPC. So we'll get there eventually, but not right out the gate.
Don't count on it right now.
Fair enough. All right. And the final question so far we have from the chat is, are there going to be non-combat missions such as mining, manufacturing, exploration, and so on? Oh, damn.
No!
Damn.
Well, there are combat support roles.
Right.
So, like combat search and rescue. you're not necessarily doing any fighting, but there's fighting
Refueling.
going on around you. You might be flying a Pegasus that's basically doing a tanker role. There's also it is a combat role, but you're not the trigger man. You could be flying a Pegasus that is basically a missile truck, and there's a bunch of Shrikes out there that are doing all the targeting, and so they're the ones actually launching the missiles, which is cool because you've got this tiny little ship darting around, painting targets and avoiding getting blown up, while you've got this big honking heavy ship launching salvos of missiles.
Now, there may be resources involved in some of the missions, like you're retrieving resources or doing something, so that, but nothing like your goal is to basically do what Blackwater does, right? Your goal is to create situations where there's firepower happening, and that's what you're hired for.
The solar system setting, the industrial infrastructure, all of those kinds of activities are going on. That's the context for a lot of the battles, but you're not going to be doing any mining. There is one of our ship designs, and we actually have a small family of similar ships that are they're basically Wildcat miner ships, but they are armed, and so they can be used for combat. And that's one of the interesting things about this level of technology is, a mining laser is an effective weapon. Just your drives, all the ships are nuclear powered, and you don't want to be at the wrong end of a nuclear powered rocket.
Yeah. Well, one thing you mentioned Blackwater, and that makes me think about rules of engagement, because let's say you get into combat and you happen to be around a civilian mining operation that's not part of the conflict. Do you get penalties for blowing up non-combatants?
Depending on what corporation, maybe the corporation's hired you to do terrorist sort of things, and you get a huge bonus if you blow them up.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You might be working for a black hat type of outfit that specializes in plausible deniability. And
but if you're hired to protect something and you shoot it, yeah, that's not going to be pretty for you. You're not going to be.
So somebody should be working on the pen and paper role playing game to accompany this, because I think it's going to be.
I'd buy it. I'd buy the source
There'll
books.
be demand.
We do have another question. Sorry.
Send them our way. Send them our way, and we'll let them talk to our biz dev guy if they want to do that.
We do have another question.
We got the guy.
We do have another question from the audience.
Awesome.
Is working for a corporation going to be strictly better, or can I play as a junker / reaver and get everything? I'm not sure entirely what that get everything means. Also, shout out to David Wessman from the UCSC class, whatever that means.
Hey, I love those guys.
This is AZ Wraith in our chat room.
The question is, do you have to specifically work for a corporation? You, like Dave said, you can work with, the more you do, the better you do for a corporation, the better your reputation is with that corporation. So it might be advantageous for you to stay with them because you'll get discounts and bonuses. But you could jump ship and you could float between corporations and get a bad rep with everybody if you want. And there may be people that are underground, sort of black market corporations that will support a seedier underclass of mercenaries, if that's even possible. So yeah, your existence in our universe would be a rougher road to take, but maybe a more interesting road. So
now is hooking up with a corporation, is that do you have to do that, or can you be like a
no?
You could be like a rogue that's like, I just want to do my own crap and screw with everybody.
Contracts will be available, and contracts are going to be essentially the multiplayer games that people are playing, and you'll sign on to fight for a corporation, because otherwise you wouldn't just do it. Somebody's got to pay you to do something. You're not going to be a freelancer unless maybe we want to put a freelancer version in it down the road. We could do that. But basically you'll just take it and you'll get a rep with that corp, but you don't have to stay with that corp by no means. You could jump on the other side for the next mission if you wanted
to. That sounds awesome. So yeah, basically you're not, to make sure people understand, it sounds like you're solely a combat pilot, so you're going to be doing combat missions. You're not going to be doing any of the economic stuff you might do in other privateers type games like hauling cargo or whatnot. You might be protecting that cargo, but you're not going to be hauling it yourself, for example.
That was sort of a baseline design choice, that we want this game to be focused on the combat experience. So if it's directly combat related or it's combat support, then it has a place in our game. Everything else is background and context.
That's for other games, right? And we're happy for those, we're happy for EVE Online to mine all the asteroids they want to. So
no, that's fair. That's fair. It's just some people, do want that experience. Some people just want to mine.
And that's the thing. That experience is already available.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Starfighter Inc. is going to offer, that's not available right now.
Yeah, this
sort
is
of. I mean, it's out there. Like Star Conflict has a little bit of it, and it's out there.
But they're not respecting the science.
No, they're not. They're airplane.
Right.
They're airplane sims. They're not space sims.
Yeah, this is basically more like Jagged Alliance / Strike Commander, where you're you're kind of a mercenary outfit working for whichever corporation you want to work with that'll pay you, basically.
That's a good analogy.
Or Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries.
Or that.
Or
Mechwarrior 2
Mercenaries.
Yeah.
It keeps coming back.
I didn't want to keep harping on Mercenaries. I'm sorry.
We were having a big argument the other day about some of the design aspects, and then Jack just throws down, well, actually, I already designed all this in Mechwarrior. So forcing me to go read the Wikipedia article and oh yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. All right.
You better go read the Crisis Wikipedia too, and look at Power Struggle if you really want to understand what's going on.
Wait, what about Crisis?
Crisis has a multiplayer mode. The first one called Power Struggle, right? And it definitely had a lot of things that we're looking at as far as the way weapons are used and weapons are upgraded and things like that. So you can use the money you get to get better weapons.
Really?
Get rank and things like that. Yeah, a lot of it. We had a pretty good audience. We didn't have Call of Duty numbers. We had probably like 20 or 30,000 MAU instead of 100 and 200,000. But we had a little dedicated audience.
I'm gonna be honest. I own Crisis and I've never played it.
I don't even know. It used to be connected to GameSpy. I don't even know if you can play it anymore. I played it about a couple of years ago.
All the multiplayer stuff is kind of toast on it.
Can you play?
Yeah, anything EA did with GameSpy, I think they killed GameSpy, so everything went away.
Can you play over a LAN? Because we have ways to do that.
You might be able to. Check it out. It's cool. It actually, it's funny. It's similar. I'm not going to take credit for the MOBA genre, but if you look at it, it's very similar to the way MOBAs work mechanics-wise, where you start as a private and you only have access to certain weapons, and the more you kill, the better the weapons you get. So by the end of the game, you're all higher-ranked people, and it's not an arena, it's in a huge map, but it definitely has a lot of mechanics similar to MOBAs now.
I might have to try this because it sounds fantastic. And it'd be
you could think about it. They had it in Crisis Wars too. They had Power Struggle.
Yeah, I've got both Crisis and Crisis Wars, and I've not played either of them.
Well, our single player is where we put most of the energy for sure.
Right. Well, now it sounds like I should play it. But I mean, it sounds like if you want a taste of what you're trying to do in Starfighter Inc., we should see if we can get that mode in Crisis or Crisis Wars working, you guys, for a Thursday nighter at some point.
We're closer to World of War tanks than Power Struggle, but there are mechanics in Power Struggle that are that are, I'd say Starfighter was inspired by at this point.
Ooh, very nice. So how far along is the game, would you say? Like, when can we get our mitts on it?
We are doing it when it's ready. We're doing the old Blizzard mantra, when it's ready.
God damn it.
Obviously, we're planning on doing another Kickstarter because funding would be very nice. We have some people we'd very much like to pay. And but right now it's a labor of love from everybody. So the people involved in it are doing it because they want to work on it, and we're all sort of working on it in our spare time. And it's just a great team. We have people all over the world. We have about a team of about 40 people that have dedicated lots of time to help us bring it where it is. Right now, the multiplayer game works. The ships, we're doing a lot of work with the ship component and damage types right now. So that's because we already had a year ago, we had a working multiplayer game with all the ship types. We had the 3 ship types. We had that all working. It was working fine. What we did not have working was detailed damage models, like components. Like, for instance, if you have we could say you can damage the space frame and your ship has hit points, right? That was working fine. We had weapons working. We had the multiplayer mode working. We had 15 versus 15, all that worked. But what was not working was the Shrike, here's the fuel tank on the Shrike. Here's where the ammo is stored on the Shrike. Here's the cockpit of the Shrike. Here's the engine on the Shrike. Here's the RCS thrusters. Here's the black box on the Shrike. And 30 components or whatever all the components our design team came up with. That just got finished, and we're just getting that into multiplayer and testing that now on our 3 main ships. So that's where we are right now. We're doing it in an organic fashion. So as things come online, the game develops. There's no real, we've got to finish it by this day. We're going to do this. However, if we go to Kickstarter again, we're going to make a commitment in Kickstarter that if we get a certain amount of funding, we're going to put a game out in a certain amount of time, because we don't want to be, like other space sims that are out there that are going on forever.
Yeah.
So we already have a game. It's just what level do we release it in is the question now. Do we do a game that has 3 base ships and 10 configurations each and 10 weapon types, or do we do a game that has 20 ships, 10 different multiplayer modes and so forth? So it's kind of, right now I'd say we're beyond first playable, but not quite to alpha would be the safe.
Well, you brought up the Kickstarter, and it crushed me when that wasn't successfully funded. I mean, you guys were like in spitting distance, and that's why we're still working on it. If it would have been a huge failure, like there would have been, we got like 221,000 out of 250, and we could have put a decent game out for 250, definitely. And we would have probably been close to shipping it by now if we would have gotten funded. And it would have been great. But definitely this time, in a way, it's a blessing to us, because some people jumped ship when the Kickstarter failed. And those people, they really weren't meant to be on the team anyway. So the people that stayed were the people that were serious about it. And we knew, wow, these guys are the gold standard that we want to work with forever. And we really became a closer knit family, and the game got better because it didn't quite make the Kickstarter. Now, if we go again and we Kickstarter, it doesn't make it, we'll probably keep working on it, but it'd be really nice to get the Kickstarter this time. Right. I have to be honest with you. Well, my question is, and I hope this isn't a mean or hard question, but what do you think you guys will do better the second time around that might have helped more the first time? Like, what do you think? What did you learn?
Show gameplay from day one.
Yeah.
Show gameplay from day one. We already got a movie that is a bunch of cool shots of gameplay that we put together with a little narrative that is really, really cool and really shows our game. We're just waiting for Kickstarter to release. That's the video that's going to release with us. And last time we showed gameplay, we only had about 5 days left, because that was our first time doing Kickstarter. We had never done a Kickstarter. We didn't know anything about Kickstarter. We thought a Kickstarter was, okay, get the funding to kickstart the project. Now it's about, go ahead and make a project and we'll buy it early. That's what Kickstarter is now. We've learned, so we've got to show much more of a completed game if we want to get funding.
It's also a 24/7 marketing campaign, basically.
Yes. Yeah, we learned that.
Yeah, and we're much more prepared this time than we were before.
Yeah, I've seen so many Kickstarters that fail, not because they have a bad game, but because they didn't update every day, or they didn't update every week. And They didn't have much to show.
It's frustratingly inconsistent in that regard, because I have to say it's mostly tabletop games where if the designer's well known enough and has a good track record, they can put out 4 updates during the entire campaign and still make their target and exceed it. And so I look at that, it's like, what? I wish we could get away with that.
Well, I mean, you have to be a level above the level that Dave and I were, because Dave and I were very much a part of a team, and every team I've ever worked on, I've never, even though I was a director or producer, I never attempted to take credit for what everybody else was doing. And certainly there's a lot of developers out there that are like the name, but they've always had 20 or 30 or 40 people behind them making them the name. And, I think it's disingenuous when you take sole credit for something, right? So Dave and I aren't at that level, sadly.
So what about a tagline like Starfighter Incorporated will make you its bitch?
Yeah.
We love John Romero, but we've definitely learned what not to do from John Romero.
We do have another question.
Another very highly hyped game that came out recently.
No Man's Sky.
It's like I was looking forward to that, and
not me. I told you it was going to be awful.
Well, no, I was looking forward to what it could have been and what people irresponsibly said it was going to be.
You can't procedurally generate content. Only humans will give you that kind of content forever, right? Only a human opponent can keep you happy forever. I just don't think it's possible.
But if you try...
it's an important lesson though in marketing and what we say in doing events like this podcast and what we say in a Kickstarter, that we have to be careful not to get people's hopes up too high so that they become disappointed and then get angry. I mean, one of the things that we learned during the Kickstarter is that people who are backing you and, therefore by definition, they support what you're doing. They want you to be successful. But if they don't get the answers that they want right away, or if they don't like the answers, they can instantly turn on you and become a toxic presence. And so we, and we saw that the best way to handle that is, well, one, stay on top of everything and be as responsive as you can, and just always be respectful. Like somebody, really thinks that we should add stealth to the game and is making noise about it. And it's like, well, look, this is why we're not going to do that. There's other games that have stealth. So, I hope you'll give Starfighter Inc. a try, because it's a different experience, and maybe you'll discover that you don't need stealth to have a good time.
In fact, every other game has stealth.
Well, we do have one more question from the audience. This is from Floridon. I keep wanting to say Floridon, but it's. Can a single player feasibly start up a corporation? Is there a certain amount of startup capital needed to do so? And I wasn't sure, but it doesn't sound like these are player-run corporations.
We are going to allow player-run corporations.
Oh, okay.
So when you've played long enough and you've gotten a group long enough and you have enough capital, like the person said, where you've got enough ships and you can do stuff, you may even be able to do your own contracts that you put out on other corporations. So yes, that is a plan to let players eventually have their own corps. But they're more like private military corporations, right? They're not going to be the Boeing of tomorrow. They're going to be the Blackwater. So PMCs.
Now, I do have to ask one question. This is very close to my heart. One thing I loved about TIE Fighter and a few other games like Free Space especially is the multitude of ways you could deal with situational awareness. You had multiple targeting keys. You could save targets that were important for later. How much work is being put into allowing this kind of situational awareness for the player in Starfighter Inc?
A lot.
A lot.
That is probably the main area of my research on this project, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of pages on UI design for modern combat vehicles, and and applying that with VR. Right now our sort of baseline that in our game this will be old-fashioned would be the F-35 or the Eurofighter Typhoon. So you've got helmet-mounted display, you've got a decision support system that is taking a lot of the load off of the pilot. So the pilot is focusing on the mission and not on monitoring all of the systems to make sure everything's working. And we want to make this a very customizable interface. And some of the things that are being implemented right now, and I just watched a video of a new Bell helicopter that has the entire front of the cockpit is one gigantic display that cameras in the nose of the aircraft give you that forward view. So it's like looking through the frame of the aircraft. And then on that screen, it's a touch screen. There are all these widgets that are all of the traditional types of cockpit instruments, radar, fuel gauges, all that kind of stuff. And the flight crew can just move those things around at will and focus on what they need to focus on. So the other part about it that I'm really excited to explore is having a Jarvis, Siri, Cortana, whatever, but having a voice. Yeah. So you've got a system that alerts you to things that you might have overlooked. You can give it a list of priorities for the targets of the upcoming mission. You can dynamically change that during the mission. All kinds of things like that just make it more immersive as an actual simulation of the future.
If you can hire Brian Blessed to do the voiceover work for that, Brian will give you all his money.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Brian,
all of it.
Brian Blessed. Okay.
Yeah. Oh
Actually, we've got a guy named Steven on our team from England who's one of our VO guys, and he's got a great dark voice like that,
nice.
deep voice. He's amazing.
Nice.
Well, we also got a great female actor. Our lead artist is related to a very talented woman who did some voiceover for us for the.
Don't talk about her.
Okay. All right. But yeah.
Never mind.
It's just
never mind. Don't look over
amazing.
here.
It's like we do placeholder voice, and it's like, okay, yeah, not exactly trained actors here.
Yeah.
But it can be passable, but we all know it's not good enough. And
we are working with some.
And then we have an actual professional
actors
do it, and we're like, oh my God, this is so awesome.
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between like a professional and a less than if you like listen to like the voice acting in like the older Eastern European space sims that would come out in, like the mid-aughts. You know what I'm talking about? Like, oh my God.
Space Wolves.
Yeah, Star
whatever it
Wolves,
was.
Space Rangers, Tomorrow War, just all those.
Or the submarine space combat game Aquanox.
Oh God, Aquanox. Oh.
I was disappointed in that thing because it's like Descent in a submarine, and it just didn't.
It was.
I know what I love.
I still want to do that kind of a game. I would love to do a futuristic submarine combat.
Oh, give me another Sub-War. Give me another Sub-War 2050.
Sub-War 2050.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say. I love
yes.
that one.
Particle systems pre-iWar. Yes. Give me more of that. Oh my God.
Sub-War 2050 was a great game.
I don't want it to be strictly based on Earth. I want to go to Europa and Enceladus and other places in the solar system where we now know they have subsurface oceans.
Oh God, I love this. Okay, we have one last question.
I might be able to get that into Starfighter eventually.
Yeah, put it on the backlog. It'll be very. It'll be on the very bottom of the backlog, Dave.
And then there's going to be room for an RTS, right? There's going to be room for an RTS.
Yeah.
That's good. RTS will be even under the underwater one.
And
we've come full circle.
And then there'll be a first-person mode
game that I'm making in my
and
spare
there'll be
time.
a first-person mode called Starfighter Marine. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh no, let's not feature creep this.
I'm sorry.
I'm very good at not allowing feature creep. Don't worry.
Yay! All right, one last question. Let's start wrapping up because we've been going for almost 2 hours and it's the middle of the night for David. Last question. Will there be a mode that will allow you to... Oh, God damn it. The chat just scrolled.
Brian,
will there be a mode
okay?
that will allow you and a friend to play on the same ship? It sounds like there will be multiplayer ships.
Yes, there are multiple pilot ships in the game. In fact, out of the 3 ships we've made, one of them has up to 3 pilots. Really, it's a pilot and 2 gunners. And the Hyperion has a pilot and a Wizzo, weapons officer.
Those are the traditional definitions of the different roles, but these ships and their systems are designed that the players who crew the ship, they can share those responsibilities. They can trade them back and forth. It's like whatever works best for you guys as a team.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm digging that because the multi-crew thing, like you see that in, Elite Dangerous is trying to bring that in, but that's like big fat slow ships, right? And it's not a fighter thing. But to go back into like what else had multi-crew, like even in a single player flight sim? Well, there was F-15 Strike Eagle
Mega
from
Fortress,
Jane's.
Mega Fortress.
Yeah, Mega Fortress did, and then F-14 Fleet Defender, and that's the only ones I can think of.
On the B-17 games.
If you count the mod for X-Wing Alliance that lets you be the gunner in the Millennium Falcon in multiplayer.
Yeah, that we actually had that implemented as true multiplayer, multi-crew, but it only worked over the LAN, so we took it out.
Oh.
No, I actually played with that mod before, and it was a lot of fun.
So it worked?
Yes.
Ooh, we'll have to try that. Jim, but there were also those 2 B-17 games. Don't forget. Remember?
Yeah.
The Microprose
well,
ones?
that's true. But I mean like a fighter, like a F-14 with a guy in the back.
Oh, fighters.
Well, I mean, we've had that since F-15 Strike Eagle 3, right? With Microprose. Me and my buddies played that our modem, and one of the modes was you were a Wizzo, and the guy could be the pilot, and you would actually fly against enemy AI, or you could take 2 planes in and go. So it's been around for a long time.
But that's what I mean is like nobody's really doing it now though. Like the only thing current that I can think of that does that is Arma, where you can multi-crew. But they don't even have
Battlefield.
What about?
Oh yeah,
does DCS support that?
I don't know if they do.
No, DCS doesn't. But Battlefield 4, for instance, you can be on an Apache and you can be the Wizzo, and the Wizzo can do a guided missile that he controls, and they have ships that are floating in the water, and you can be in multiple gun positions up to 6 or 7 different positions. So it's nothing new.
True. I forgot all about the
Dice does it good. They got multi-crew ships too. They got gun ships that like C-130s. They could hold 2 or 3 people.
That's right. I forgot about that mission. Yeah.
So
if they would just do a powered armor version of that, like a Battlefield 21.
Well, isn't that Call of Duty Infinity? Isn't that the Crisis ripoff?
That. Well, but see that's a thing, right? So that's an interesting evolution, because you had the Battlefield and Call of Duty, and it's like they would alternate World War II, Modern Warfare, World War II, Modern Warfare. And then these guys from Infinity Ward that broke off and did their own thing, they come out with Titanfall, right? And now you got like wall running and jetpacks and guys that can double jump and big robots and stuff. So then Call of Duty's like, well, we're not going to do the robots, but we're going to put all that other stuff, the whole exoskeleton, double jump, wall run, all that mess. Didn't do it quite as well, because to me there's since Loki's Minions CTF with Quake, there has not been a more fun capture the flag mode than what was in Titanfall, and sadly nobody plays it. It makes me cry.
Just for us, Titanfall, I mean, stuff like that, like King of the Hill and Capture the Flag, that's too gamey for us. We definitely want it to feel immersive, like this is a real mission happening with real consequences.
I like that.
I mean, you're not gonna have like sports, right? Well, actually you could, right? If you did like a sport mode, but let's not do that. But it's the evolution. Did you say no? Okay.
No.
But the evolution though that happened in that space, right? Because as soon as Infinity Ward said Titanfall, now it's all futuristic. Well, now Call of Duty is on a ramp up where it's like more in the future every iteration.
Right, and
they're
everybody and all their customers hate them, but they love the Battlefield 1 coming out. So that's what's hilarious. I think Battlefield 1's going to
genius
destroy.
because they figured out how to get everybody to pay $80 for a reboot of Battlefield 1 or Call of Duty 4, whatever it was. Yeah.
That wasn't. I don't know. I think actually Call of Duty's losing. They're losing audience, and I think this Christmas, Battlefield 1 is going to destroy Call of Duty Infinite. I think it's going to do way better for the first time because Battlefield 1 is completely unique and original, right?
Well, I think biplanes are slow, right? And you can keep that in because trying to do jets and you're flying basically in the map area of a phone booth, so you're constantly turning or you run off the map. Well, biplanes, that's not a problem because you're only going like 40 mile an hour anyway. So
yeah, I played the beta. It was great. I mean, it's really it's a whole new game, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and a tank with 3 gunners is pretty cool too. So yeah, that land ship thing.
They have an armored train. There's like 7 gunners on it, man. It's real nasty.
Yeah, it was a little OP, but yeah.
I've never played the armored games.
They're great.
That's what I've heard. I just don't have time. Speaking of games we're playing, what are you guys? Let's wrap this up by asking, what are you guys playing right now? And then I have one last question for you guys.
Go ahead, Dave.
Starfighter. I was playing a little bit of World of Tanks and World of Warships. Stupidly, just because I can do it on my way to work, I've been playing Pokemon Go. I don't know why either. My boss said, "Oh, you got to check it out." All right, and then it's like, well, okay. While I walk to work, I can collect Pokemon. Wow.
I got tired of that. I got tired of that real fast.
Yeah. Oh, but those guys made so much money on that. Oh my God.
But are they still?
Well, I do have a fascination with things like that. Anytime a game makes a big splash like Pokemon Go did, or just the entire phenomenon of free to play, still wrapping my head around some of the design aspects of that. Is how do you monetize effectively without annoying people? Nobody wants to a pay to win type of a game. But they did it great because it's like you can throw out a lure for $1. Yeah, and it benefits everybody around you too. So then it makes people congregate. So there's been some stores that they'll just throw lures out to get people to come in their store. I was talking to a woman who's just that's exactly what she was doing. She thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, but hey, she'll use whatever tools are available.
I've been playing right now the latest game. I always keep one strong single player game going, and I'm trying to I'm playing Deus Ex: Mankind Divided right now. Great game.
Oh, nice.
It's superb game. And I'm waiting for Dishonored 2 to come out because I really love Dishonored, and I thought that was a superb game, so I can't wait for that to come out. I play World of Warships daily. At least 1 or 2 matches every day, and I play League of Legends probably daily, 1 or 2 matches. And I'm still in Bronze 5. I suck at it, but I love it. It's my RTS fix. I kind of miss the old RTS games, but this kind of gives me the same feeling. So are you guys going to do that in your game? Put the daily crack crate, like, here's your daily login reward. You get the better crate today. Not at first. We'll see. I think before you can do stuff like that, you've got to have a certain audience size before it makes sense. So we'll see as we roll out how many people are playing. And I don't think we're going to do gimmicks like that because everything, like I said, everything has to fit within the constraint of, first of all, real science. Next, you're really there. So there's not going to be gamey stuff like chests that you open and garbage like that. It would be stuff that would be related to corporate rewards and things like that. But
what is the business model? Is it going to come out like free to play and then we buy stuff?
It really depends on once we do one more round of Kickstarter funding, depending on what happens there. could come out to be free to play, and then we have to do certain things to, recoup the cost of it. We may charge $10 or $20 for it. We may make it a virtual reality game. There's a lot of different business models that we're experimenting. But we're going to try. But it's definitely not play to. It will never be pay to win. Time and money will always be. Anything that you can do with time, you can do with money. So that'll be the way that we judge that.
All right. Well, I wanted to finally ask. This is my last question, at least. You both said you're college professors. What do you guys teach and where?
I teach game design and production at NHTD Breda, University of Applied Sciences, the International Game Architecture and Design Department.
Well, you're certainly qualified.
Yeah, I got into teaching in 2008, and I love it. It's incredibly rewarding. I'm actively involved in helping other people make games and learn how to make them better. It's an incredible feeling when you see somebody's eyes light up with that understanding that they've figured it out and you help them get there.
I'm a professor of game design at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I love it. It's a great job.
Do you guys
it's interesting.
And we get to harvest the best talent.
I was about to say, you guys technically have a team of developers at your fingertips. So I mean, you guys could add a couple of good games.
It's not. We cannot work with our current students. We're not allowed to.
Yeah, there's
class projects.
Well,
it's their projects, not our projects.
Yeah, because if there's a perception of conflict of interest where other students think that I'm going to be giving more favorable treatment to students who are working on my project, that's not even allowed. But what we can do is we get to know people through teaching them, and we see talent that we like, and when they're looking for an internship, we can see if they fit in with the team, and that's how we got our current lead artist and our current lead technical artist and our chief spacecraft systems designer. They all started as interns.
So you guys can't School of Rock this thing and just be like Jack Black and take them to the No.
My students do fine on their own. They win competitions with the games, and I just shepherd them. I don't give them. I don't do their game design. I just say this is the way you do it, and I teach them, and they go off and they win everything on their own. So they've won more than we have actually.
Hey, well,
there is a model for that. I was invited to give a talk in China at a university. Was it Jilin Animation Institute, and on the film side, that was their dominant program. The big projects that came out of the university were conceived of and run by faculty. The students were the workforce. And
that's China, though. That's China.
China.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God.
No, it stuck with me because it's like, hey, can we do this? Is there a way to set this up? Because most of the schools that I've taught at have taken the sensible attitude that students should own their work, and the school reserves the right to use it in marketing, but it's the student's game, and so it gets really complicated really quickly when you have to start working out ownership issues on projects like that.
Well, stick around after the show. I do have a couple of quick questions about that are just for the off the air kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. Well, my friends, does anyone have any final questions before we wrap this up? We have been going for almost 2 hours. That's why I was thinking we should probably.
No, I'm pretty sure
you're very lucky. A hurricane just hit my town, and I can't do anything else. So I had nothing else to do tonight.
Oh
with this.
no!
Oh wow! Thanks.
Oh no!
Jack is very focused and driven. He has been the engine that has kept this project going.
I hate laughing at
Speaking
stuff like
of
that.
focus, thanks for joining us, Dave, in your time zone. I mean, geez.
Oh my god, right? Oh my god, it's like what, 4 a.m. now?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I'd be a zombie. I wouldn't be coherent. I'd be like, huh? What?
Oh, I've been working on the workshop lecture that I have to give tomorrow and audio design for levels. So that's.
And he loves you guys kissing his ass too. So that doesn't even enjoy that.
Well, we could do that all frickin' day. Oh my god, both of you guys, not just him. Both of you guys.
Hey,
Yeah,
have
both
you
you guys
have you
for
guys
sure.
seen that masterclass website that is basically like, you can learn acting from Dennis or trying to think, Kevin Spacey, right? Like teaches an acting class, and it's like $200. Then you sign up and you get like 20 lessons with Kevin Spacey, and you can ask him questions and stuff.
No.
So you should go to those guys and just be like, hey, you can learn like level design from us.
I'm pretty
or whatever.
sure the place I work would not want me doing that.
Probably not.
Probably not. I think Aaron Sorkin is doing one of those too, though. I think he's doing one of those.
Yeah, he
master
is
classes
actually.
as
That's
well.
how I found out about it. I saw the Sorkin.
I love my job. I love my job too much to be doing anything like that.
Do you guys get
So,
fans
no,
in your do you guys get fans in your classes that know your games, that know your history?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mostly they're at this point, but mostly it's their dads that know my games. So, like they started on Mechwarrior 2. My dad played that all the time, right? So I'm 52 now, so the last game I put out was 2007, which was Crisis. So for me, some of them were even, they weren't playing mature PC games, so it's like they're young. So, but yeah, every now and then there's somebody, the first day they're looking at you and they know who you are. So it's kind of funny.
That's great. Well, gentlemen, David, Jack, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Seriously.
Well, thank you, Brian. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks.
And I've been talking to Awesome Laser for a while here. I love him to death. We're buddies. So we just hope you guys definitely keep an ear out for us when the Kickstarter comes. We need all your support to get the word out. So
when will the next Kickstarter?
Next time I come down. Next time I come down that way, man, we'll go eat breakfast at Paula Dean's and drink a beer at the Pirate House.
No, you don't go to Paula Dean's. You go to Mrs. Wilkes for that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And you go to Vinny Van Gogo's for pizza. So and Savannah's got, and you go to Wet Willie's for drinks.
Vinny's is still there, huh? Yeah.
I hit Vinny's. Friday night is my routine. I hit Vinny Van Gogo's Friday night. Best pizza in the world.
Oh wow,
And,
I haven't been there since '92, so I'm shocked to hear that anything's still there.
Vinny's is
Hey,
awesome.
That's great.
we've also had a request to drive some traffic towards your all's not Kickstarter, but your all's Discord channel. So we can definitely put the link to that for people to get to as well.
Totally. All we need
I
is
don't
invite.
think. Do we let people in our Discord channel, Dave? I don't think we do.
You let us in.
Ours.
You let us in.
No.
Developer Discord channel, and there's the Starfighter Pilots channel.
Yes, that's the one.
There goes the neighborhood.
Okay.
I don't know about the other one. Thanks.
Pretty much.
Now I'll try to get in.
What? You can try. It doesn't work, but
Folks, just to wrap up.
we've got a Facebook. We've got Starfighter Inc. Facebook page. We've got a Starfighter Inc. Twitter. So, God, I sound like one of these idiots on the Colbert Show, right?
I was going to ask you those questions.
Facebook.
I was going to ask you those questions anyway. We usually ask where can people follow up with you guys, but you just kind of threw it out there on your own, which is great.
Starfighter Inc. on Facebook and Starfighter Inc. on Twitter. I think we even have a screenshot Saturday that Dave's supposed to be in charge of. So we'll just have a new screen. So
Starfighter Inc. the coloring books. Starfighter Inc. the lunchbox. Merchandising.
Hey, I'm all about the merch, man.
So, folks, just a couple of final programming notes. This Thursday, our multiplayer game is going to be Space Beast Terror Fright. We're continuing our scary, spooky sci-fi games. So we're going to return to the friendly fire that is Space Beast Terrafright. We love that freaking game. So I'm super excited about that. And next week on the podcast, it's an early morning show because our guests are in Paris. We're going to be talking to some folks from Amplitude Studios about Endless Space 2 next Tuesday at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So please.
Yeah, but the interview will still be going in the evening because it's endless.
No, it's because I'll be apologizing for how much I didn't like the first game and yet loved every game they did after that. So I'll be just apologizing all day. Like, I'm sorry. But again, Jack, David, thank you so much for joining us. This has been just a thrill.
Thank you guys for inviting us.
It's been a blast.
And
we'll have to do this again real soon.
We will. Maybe when the
we'll do one when the Kickstarter comes out.
I was going to say, last question. So. Do you have an idea of when the Kickstarter is coming out? I keep meaning to ask that. I'm sorry. Do you have an idea of when?
Very soon. Very soon. That's all.
Very soon. Yeah, we're on that knife edge of a decision of whether it's really, really soon or a little bit later.
All right. Well, just let us know when it comes out, and we'll do all the pimping we can for it. Absolutely.
We will. Thank you guys so much.
All right, folks, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we will see you next week. Have a great night, everyone. Or morning if you're in David's time zone.
Yeah, I got to get up in 3 hours.
Oh no.
Thanks, guys.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.